Stitch Cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and in this video tutorial we are going to make our super cute little pincushion that is the welcome kit when you join the Happy Place block of the month. So this video tutorial is specific for Sewing Machine Applique, meaning you're going to use your sewing machine every month to complete the applique, and then of course when you go to piece your quilt together with your finishing kit in box 14, you'll use your sewing machine to put your entire quilt top together. So I'm going to review a little bit of notions and then we're going to get started. So everything that you need is going to come in your pincushion kit. So you have your pattern, and inside you have your laser cut pieces, your background fabric, your backing fabric, and your binding. So let's go on and open that up. I'm going to show you how we're going to prep our applique pieces. We're going to make our little applique units, put it on. I'll give you some stitch tips, and then you'll be able to sew your little pincushion together on your own. It's super easy. 4 little seams and you're done. So also what we're going to need, I'll show you how we're going to prep the pieces in just a minute. I'm going to go over a few notions that I like to use. So in front of me, I have 90-14 needles. These are a great size needle to use when you are completing sewing machine applique. So you're going to put this on your sewing machine, and it has a larger eye in the needle so that the 30 weight thread, which is the thicker thread, can be accommodated through the eye of this needle. Then you'll use a 30 weight thread in the needle of your machine and a 50 weight thread in the bobbin of your machine. Now, if you want to, you can use 50 weight in the top and bottom thread. You'll get a beautiful quilt. The 30 weight thread is a thicker thread, so it really adds a little bit more dimension to your stitching and looks really good. Again, I'll demo a few tips on stitching towards the end of this video after we've built our applique units and are ready to sew. So look forward to that. Let me set that aside. Now, some must-haves are what we call the perfect stack for sewing machine applique. And in front of me, I have, you can't see the full thing, but underneath, I have my light pad. It's the Caterpillar Premium Glow light pad. Has 3 different levels of light, and I love it. Right on top of that, it's a perfect fit. I put my glass mat. It's a tempered glass and it's fantastic. It allows you to be able to put your placement guide right on the glass. You can iron your pieces in place and you're not going to have to worry about hurting your light pad because the glass is protecting your light pad. And then of course, it wouldn't be complete doing applique without a fusing mat. So a fusing mat is just a simple mat. It allows you to build your applique units, iron on top of this, and then you're able to easily peel up your applique units and put it on your background fabric. So the applique that we're doing today on the pincushion is super simple. It's just 4 pieces or 5 pieces, something like that. And so building an applique unit is helpful, but you don't really see the full effect until you're working on your real blocks or you're building like larger units. And the benefit is that you get the pieces perfectly in place using your placement guide in this perfect stack. Then you're able to move those perfect applique units onto your background fabric. So they're great. If you're gonna make a mistake, basically, you make it while you can still fix it. That's always my good idea, I think. So another thing I like to have are the Karen K. Buckley scissors. They are serrated and they're sharp all the way to the tip. These are super handy to have pretty much in anything you're doing sewing. This is the medium size. They also come in small and large. I recommend getting all 3 sizes, but if you can only pick one size to get, I'd go with medium. It's my personal favorite size. And this is great when you're snipping your little applique pieces free, when you're trimming threads, things like that. It's great. And then when it comes to actually sewing, we are going to use a stabilizer behind our stitches because we want to stabilize our stitches, right? If you don't use a stabilizer, sometimes your fabric and your thread can kind of like pull down a little bit into the throat or the foot of your machine. With the stabilizer, your stitches are perfectly stable. Basically, it's just like a protective barrier underneath what you're stitching. This is Sulky Terry Easy. It's great. It is 11 yards, so 33 feet. So it is more than enough for the entire Happy Place block of the month and possibly 2 or 3 Stitches of Love block of the month that you just have to sign up for. And then another thing I like to have is a really small, like travel size iron, if you will, when we're doing applique. And this is the Aliso M3 Pro. Super cute. This was a coral color that I'm using today. It also comes in pistachio, which is like a green, yellow, lime kind of color. And then it also comes in aqua, which is very pretty. It has steam. I personally don't use steam when I'm doing this. And if you're going to use this iron for other projects and you want to have steam, this is the little water tank you open right here. And you can steam just from the front of the iron or this button on the right allows you to seam just from the back of the iron. And this is on, that's why I'm not touching it too much because it's hot. But it's a super great little iron. And I don't know if you've noticed, it has a little light, which of course turns off when I talk about it. But the little light, oh, look, when I go up, it turns off. And when you're flat and ironing, it turns on. So there's a little light right there, which I guess is helpful. And then it does have this nice little travel plate that you can tuck it in here and it can hang if you wanted to. Or the resting side, you simply sit it on top of it. It's a little silicone resting mat. So super great to have. I find it very handy. So now let's go to our kit and let's get started. So first off, when you open it up, you'll see that you have a black and white insert. This is your applique placement guide, and these are your reverse applique pieces. So if you're not familiar with applique, the reason you use a reverse is because when you put the fusible, you trace this, right? And you put the fusible on the back side of the fabric. When you then turn it over to see the fabric, you're seeing a mirror image of whatever you traced, which is why we give you the reverse pieces in case you ever wanted to trace this and make it again. And then you have your full-size placement guide. Now, remember, you have all of your great pieces already cut out for you, so we'll get those ready in one moment. Inside your pattern, always, always, always read your whole pattern before you get started. It just helps you eliminate mistakes, right? You see what's coming. And we write the instructions to be very clear, and we try not to put in too much information where it's daunting to read, but we also want to make sure we give you all the details so it's really easy to do. So of course, we remind you that this is your free welcome gift. A reminder, your Happy Place block of the month is going to renew on the 15th of every month. So for 14 months, you are going to get a super fun box in the mail. And up front, we send you the free welcome gift. This little welcome gift is a really good way to practice what you're doing. And it's just really cute to have by your sewing machine or in your sewing room or in your sewing space all year long. Super cute. You get a little reminder of who we are. I'm Brittany, that's me. My mom, Julie, is the designer. And then this is a collaboration with our friend Amy Brucken of Amy Brucken Designs. She is primarily a cross-stitch designer and also an artist. And her black and white line art is then translated by my mom, Julie, into the applique quilt that you know and love. And it's just super fun to collaborate because both Amy and Julie love like fun, bright colors. And that's how you end up with the quilts that you love to make. So we're going to go through this together. We're going to prep our fabric. Then we're going to go right into our instructions. Of course, step one is a little reminder of how you set up your applique workspace. We're going to number each applique piece, which we'll do in a moment. Then we get to making our applique units, ironing it on our fabric. We give you a little guide, as you can see right here. You don't even have to think about what color to put where in your stitching. We tell you what pieces you're going to stitch with what color, and we do that throughout the quilt. And then we're going to actually assemble the pincushion would be the last step. So I'm going to give you some sewing machine applique stitch tips, but I'm not going to actually assemble the entire pincushion because it truly is 3 seams, stuff it, sew it closed, and then do your binding. Super, super simple. I know you can do it. And then at the back of this little booklet, we have given you Julie's stitch tips, which again are kind of going to be what I review at the end of the tutorial today. But she walks through how to pick out your favorite stitch on your machine, which I'll show you, and then a technique. I highly recommend, I'm jumping ahead a little, I personally love a sewing machine with a start-stop button because I feel I have more control over where my stitch is starting and stopping, and you kind of get the rhythm of your buttonhole stitch going in your mind, and you know when to press start and stop to pivot and to end your stitch and things like that. If you have a foot pedal, it is completely doable with just a foot pedal. And some people prefer that for sure. We have friends that don't like the start stop button and they love the foot pedal only. So you just have to get your technique down and basically know the rhythm of your machine and you'll be successful. Again, this is a great project for practicing if you haven't done any applique in a while, or possibly this is your first time appliquing. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we would prep all of our fabric. I like to use a little bit of starch. My recommendation, and this is Julie's recommendation as well, whatever amount of starch you're going to do, like on your block 1, do that throughout. So I do a little light bit of starch on every background fabric, just light. I don't make it all the way to paper like I might if I'm doing like a piece quilt. I love starch. On this, I just do a little bit of starch. I did not bring my starch in the room, so pretend I starched. And then we're just going to simply iron this. And this fabric, you can see it's cute little flowers. It's a Lori Holt fabric. And the flowers mingle all around. They toss and turn. So there's no proper direction of this fabric, which is helpful. And you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna press the back of your pincushion, and then this is your binding. You'll wanna press it and then prep it. We have a video tutorial that's really popular on binding that I'll link to, and it'll show you how to prep your binding. This is a 3-inch or so piece that we give you. I recommend trimming it down to 2.5. And if you're really comfortable with binding, you could go all the way down to 2.25 inches if you wanted. We finished this off by machine at the end. So 2.5 gives you a little bit more wiggle room in tucking that back and basically catching it on the back side. Again, we have a tutorial for that. So pretend I've starched and prepped. What we're gonna do now is label our applique pieces. So all of our pre-fused laser cut applique pieces are cut out. And what this means is that the exact same files, I'm the digitizer of the art from Julie and our other licensed artists like Amy. And so the exact same shape that you have here is the exact same shape that I use on all of our lasers. So when it's sent to our laser department, you are getting perfect cuts of everything. So for example, this rectangle is going to be a perfect fit, right? Every single shape is perfect. So you'll notice that some of the pieces might be in a larger piece. And that is one, when it comes to the small pieces, we want to make sure the paper backing doesn't come off in transit to you. So we'll put it inside a little square, and you just have this very little piece, just boop, snip, takes 1 second, and your piece is free. Let's see if that's on any others. Yes, we have the little chimney. You're just gonna do one straight little cut there. And is anything else? Nope, everything else is all the way ready to go. So now we're going to flip our pieces over. These are fused with Sulky Perfect Fusible Applique. It is a wonderful fusible web for applique because it's so thin and lightweight, but it's a very strong permanent hold on your project. It's great. Maybe you've seen a tutorial where they're using a thicker fusible and they have you cut out like the inner part of the fusible. That's silly. You don't want to make extra steps. That doesn't make sense to me. If you're using a nice, thin, high quality fusible like this Sulky Perfect Applique fusible web, then you don't have to worry with that step. If you've never seen anyone do it, ignore it. You never need to learn it because you're using the great stuff. So I'm just going to flip my pieces over, put them in place, and identify them. So this is number 6, number 3. So you can see I have it where it's flipped over, fusible paper backing side up, and I'm identifying my applique pieces. And this is because in a minute, we're going to organize them by how we're going to iron them on and how we're going to build our unit. So this is number 7. My tree trunk is number 1. My little roof is number 5. And now I'm going to show you a cool trick that you can apply to all kinds of applique. When it comes to something like a flower or a tree or anything that kind of has like a wonky shape, you want to make your life easy when you get to putting it down on your thing, not have to turn it a million times to know which way is up. So what I do is put it on my placement guide and I know it's in place. I'm going to flip it over just like so. So up is still up. I'm going to draw an arrow up. And that way I know when I put it in place, when I go to put it on my placement guide, I don't have to turn it like 30 times. Now, this piece is not that complicated. None of the pieces in this particular block are complicated, but throughout this project and other applique projects you do, this is a great tip to remember because sometimes you have a flower where every petal is a little bit different, but they all look the same and you're going like it makes me think of, I think it's block 7 on the Loads of Fun. I want to say there's like maybe 7 or 10 flowers. They're all different and they all look very similar and all the petals are a little different. So if you don't do this little trick, you're on your project like spinning your little thing and you might as well just do it up front when you're labeling. Okay, so now let's pull our pattern back out. Wasn't that easy? That's all it takes to label your pieces. So now we're going to go into our pattern. We've set up our workspace. We've identified our pieces. Now we're on step 3. We're going to build applique unit 1. So now I'm going to turn on my light pad. And I apologize when I turn on the light pad. I know the light might get a little weird for you on the camera, but I got to see too. Okay, so we're going to organize our pieces. And so the first piece we're going to iron is 1. The second piece will be 2. So I'm just going to sit them together right over here. If I look ahead in my pattern, I can know that the next unit we're going to build are pieces 3 through 7. And when you are ironing your pieces on, you're always going to put them down in numerical order. So it's a piece of cake. That's why we number it. So you're gonna go 3, and then the next piece we would, it's a little hard to pick up with my nails, I must say. Then we'll do 4, then we'll do 5, then we'll do 6, and then we'll do 7. I would recommend, by the way, I'm using like a off-brand Sharpie to label my pieces. I don't know if you can see it's getting on my fingers. I really like to use a Pigma pen or a mechanical pencil, something like that, or a fine point pen to label my pieces. We use this down in our laser department because it's great for like the big presses that we're using. For my fingers, I don't recommend it because I'm getting ink on myself. So there's a little tip. Pay attention to what you're writing with. Okay, so now we're gonna build an applique unit. And how we do that is we use our placement guide. And so how I have my little workspace set up is my light pad, then my glass, then I'm gonna put my placement guide. Let me make sure I have that in the center for you. And right on top of my placement guide, I put my fusing mat. And so what we're gonna do is simply iron pieces 1 and 2 together. Again, this is a welcome kit. It's very simple applique. So you might say like, I could just put that on my background fabric, but this is a technique that I like to use across the board anytime I'm doing applique, simple or complicated, because it just builds a really good habit. And I believe I just hit the camera with my elbow. Sorry, guys. So I'm just gonna put this right in place. I'm not ironing yet. You'll notice that your fusing mat is a little tacky to the touch. It kind of holds your pieces in place for you. Now remember, I have my arrow facing up. So I'm just going to peel my backing just like so. And then I hit my little tree trunk. Oh no, disaster, earthquake, I put him back. And then we're just gonna put this right in place. Again, your little tree is a perfect fit. And then with my iron, I'm just simply gonna tap where it overlaps. Boop, that's it. You press it for about 3 to 5 seconds. You just sort of get like this natural routine when you're pressing. I don't count in my head anymore. I don't do any of that. I just do it. It becomes natural. And if when you press it, like when you're starting off, you're counting to say 3 or 5 seconds, when you're first doing it, that's not enough. Maybe your iron is a little too cool. You need to turn the heat up just a smidge or hold it for another second, right? No big deal. You don't need to make it like complicated. I think a lot of people get like very regimented with applique. And to me, applique is so forgiving. It's so much easier than like crazy piecing and stuff. So now I'm just going to move my tree aside. I'm going to build my next applique unit. So see, I just simply slid that over. If you want to go on and pick it up off your fusing mat, boop, 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 look at that. It's ironed together. How cool is that? Oh my God, he's so cute. Isn't that not the cutest tree? I love that. I'd plant that in my garden. Okay, so now our next applique unit is step 4. And it is applique unit number 2. You can see in your pattern, we're just following along. It's super simple. And we're gonna simply build our applique units 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, a minute ago, we prepped it, we laid it out in order. There's nothing we have to think about. It's great. So I do recommend, I don't have it with me, I like to have a little cute jar, like a little something, or like a cute little tin trash can. Actually, at my sewing space at home, I've ordered from Amazon the cutest little trash can that's like maybe 6 inches tall, and it has the little revolving lid, and it comes with the cutest little trash bags. So when you're doing this, obviously you're peeling off all your paper backing. It's helpful to have a little trash can or trash bowl by your workstation. Then we're gonna put piece number 4. This is the same fabric. Isn't that cute? I don't remember what this print is called, but it is a Lori Holt print. I think the majority of the fabrics in this quilt are Lori Holt, and then we have the super cute dapple dot. We have the paparazzi, which is a new cute dotted print from our friends at Riley Blake. And what I love about this fabric is that if you're not familiar with the difference in like qualities of fabrics, this is 100% cotton. It's quilt shop quality fabric. And you can feel the difference when maybe you use, I don't know how to say it, an off-brand or a big box store fabric. It's just different. This feels so fantastic. And once you start working with it, you get spoiled, and not spoiled, I would say. That's what you want to work with, is the good stuff. Okay, so I have 3 pieces in place, right? 3, 4, and 5. I don't want to risk wiggling it again, right? Because you noticed I did that earlier. I'm just gonna flop it for a few seconds. Now we're gonna put our little door. You'll notice that this is a pretty dark fabric. If I look close, I can see where my door goes through this. However, if you're working with a dark fabric and you can't see what's underneath, just simply lift this a little bit and then just eyeball right there. I know that's where my door goes, and it lines up perfectly on the bottom. Easy peasy. And then we have our heart. And again, I don't think you can see on the camera. I can subtly see this. We always do tutorials for our team. We have 16 amazing ladies and gentlemen that help us make all these kits for you and answer emails and all that good stuff. And just yesterday, actually, we were doing a tutorial of block 1 of this, so everybody like gets a feel for the new quilt, and everyone understands how the pattern is written and things like that, if we've updated how we write patterns or anything. And it was really fun because in block 1, the house is kind of a green, and everyone was like, oh my god, you can still see through it. It was really fun. It's the things we get excited about here. And then we're just going to put the heart, bloop. How cute is that? Right in the center. He goes above the door, right? No, he goes on the door. Did we change this? Am I being nuts? Let's look. No, it goes on the door. Y'all, I almost made a boo-boo. I'm glad I looked. I was putting it above. He goes on the door. So we're going to put that right in place and just center it where you want it. Again, now when it comes to seeing this heart, I can't see the heart through, hence why I almost made a boo-boo. But it's a really simple piece to put in place, just like so. That looks good, right? Do you approve? I do. And now we're just going to zap it again for a few seconds. Super simple. And now, if when you first pick it up, it's a little hot, I just kind of cool it off for a second. And you do like, I call it the shake. You just do like a little shake like that. It just circulates a little air. And y'all, I'm using a really old fusing mat. It's actually one that Mom uses a lot. And it's been rotary. But I have to tell you, if you ever make a boo-boo and you hurt your fusing mat, it still works. It's fine to use. But I don't recommend making that boo-boo. Don't accidentally cut on your fusing mat. So there's our little house. How cute is that? Now we're ready. We can put our fusing mat aside. We're going to go right to our placement guide. And you're going to take your background fabric. You'll notice that the piece we give you is ginormous compared to what you really need. You don't need to trim it down at all because we're going to trim it after it's sewn, right? So we mark on all of our patterns where your binding seam line or your seam line is going to be. And then the outer line is always your trim line. Always use a ruler when you're trimming though. If you don't use a ruler, this pattern maybe was printed a little weird and the size isn't perfectly 5.5 or something like that. Although we try to make the printer behave. But always use your ruler when you're trimming. Just a little caveat I feel I have to say. So now we're going to simply put our 2 applique units right in place. So here's applique unit 1. Look at that perfect fit. I'm just going to give it a little press. And now we're going to put our house on. So again, this is super simple applique. But when you start getting into applique blocks with more pieces and more layering, this is such a helpful thing to do to build applique units. Because if we're going to make a boo-boo, we're going to make it before it's on our actual fabric and we'll find it faster. Yay! That's it. So now we're ready to sew. Was that not so simple? So we're going to now move over to the sewing machine. You'll have a different view of just the sewing machine for the next little bit. And I'm going to give you a little stitch tip of what we're stitching. So reminder, you have this little chart. So out of your thread kit, you only need for this particular pincushion, you need 3 colors. Your 1812 Wildflower, which is the super cute purple, your 1045, the light teal, and your 1039 true red. So you will want to, if you haven't already, get your 30 weight thread out and ready to go. You don't have to do anything other than get it out. I like to lay my threads in order, I must say. And then for your 50 weight cotton thread, are those not the prettiest colors? Look at that, I love it. I recommend right now what I would do, because you're about to start a fun year of stitching, I would make 1 bobbin for each single color, and I store them together. Keep them together so you don't forget what's what. You can put a little sticker on the top of your bobbin that maybe if you have like a removable sticker that you can label it, and then when you put it in your machine, you take the sticker off, or just simply put it together with it. I have hanging on the wall a thread rack, right? And so I can fit 1 spool of thread, and then the matching coordinating bobbin sits right on top of it. That way I don't have to label anything. And these are all pretty easy colors to tell apart. If you did not label it, it wouldn't be that big a deal. You'd be able to match it. I do want to tell you on the pink, The pink in your needle is 1307 for your 30 weight, and on your 50 weight, the pink is 1109. That is because they just happen to not make either of those colors in both weights. So having a bobbin that is ever so slightly off in a shade is not the biggest deal in the world. If you wanted to use a white bobbin throughout, you certainly could. The reason we do this is because on something like a blanket stitch, even if you have a brand new machine and it's fantastic, which we love the Janome M7s across the office. They're awesome. It's my favorite sewing machine I've ever had in the whole world. It's just, you get, I think, a better finished look by matching your bobbin. But again, if you feel super confident and don't want to match your bobbin, you could use just white. On the embroidery machine, I use just white. For Sewing Machine Applique, we always match. It's just what we do. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine. Hopefully you're finding this super helpful so far. And I don't know how many minutes it's been, but super fast, even with me talking, you're ready to sew when you get your project in the mail. So think about how much fun you're gonna have every month. Oh my God, it's gonna be so fun. I'm gonna make this every month and put it in my house, probably in my dressing room, so I can enjoy it personally. And let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, so now we're zoomed in on my sewing machine. So you can't see the full machine, but this is a Janome M7 Continental. I love this machine. You can do applique though, no matter how fancy or not fancy your machine is. So you can use a straight stitch, you can use a zigzag stitch, but what we like to use is what we call the buttonhole stitch. You can also call it a blanket stitch. They're interchangeable. So when you're picking out your stitch, you want to pay attention to make sure that the stitch is going to go forward always. So you want it to do 2 stitches along the side of your applique piece in a forward motion. And it's going to bite in onto the applique piece and then go right back out. And then forward, forward, bite in, bite out, forward, forward, bite in, bite out. Now, how that's going to be displayed is when on the stitch that I'm selecting, it happens to be applique stitch number 7. On my machine, I have a screen, so I can see forward, forward, bite, bite, forward, forward, bite, bite, forward, forward, bite, bite. Let me show you what it looks like other ways. If you see more than one line beside each other, that means your machine is going to go forward, backward, forward. So this one, for example, between the bite ends, between the bites, like the stitch onto the fabric, you see 3 lines, not in a row, but side by side of each other. And that means that this stitch is going to go forward, forward, then bite in, bite out, forward, backward, bite in, bite out. Where that gets tricky is when we're going around a piece that we're turning on, you are going to have to really be careful and pivot at a very specific time so that you don't have one of those 3 forward, backward, forward stitches wonky and sticking out. And you also have to make sure that you're getting your bite in and bite out proper. So it just becomes tedious when you have too many stitches. You'll sometimes see, I don't think this one has any more. Oh, look at this. I mean, this one's just bananas. It goes forward, backward, forward. Then the next stitch is forward, backward, forward. And then the bite in is in, out, in, out. So you are getting an insane amount of stitches. Now, maybe you want to do this if you are using a really thin thread, but we're using this nice 30 weight cotton thread in our needle. And so we can pick essentially the easiest stitch to control, which in this case is forward, forward, bite in, bite out, forward, forward, bite in, bite out. So again, this is shown by having 2 lines stacked on top of each other. So it's showing a stitch in a line, and then it's simply showing 2 lines horizontally, meaning your bite in and bite out. So that you'll just want to play with your machine. Now, another thing is your stitch size. So real fast, I just grabbed a scrap of fabric, super cute scrap, right? And my machine wants to default to 2x3. I know that that's not the size I want. So I took my bite in and bite out down to 2.5. That seems to be what I love on this machine. For my bite in and my bite out, I like it at 2.5. Where I change my mind sometimes is the length of the stitches, the forward motion stitches along the side. So I tested 2.5 by 2.5. It felt kind of far apart because remember, these are fairly small pieces on this. And then I was like, okay, let's try 2.3. So 2.5 again is my bite in and my bite out. 2.3 is the distance between those bites. And I took it down to 2.3. That was pretty good. However, I like it down to 2. So on this machine, am doing 2.5 by 2. Now, on my embroidery machine, I like it to be 2.5 by 2.5. On another brand machine, you might have a totally different stitch length and width that you like. It is purely something that you just have to play with. Another thing to keep in mind, these are kind of small pieces on the little pincushion. When I go to stitch my actual block 1, block 2, block 3, etc., my mind might change and I might say, you know what, I want the 2.3 or I want the 2.5 by 2.5. What I do is I make a note. So I would make a little note on my pattern or on my placement guide, and I would just say the name of my machine and what stitch width and length and the stitch number I'm doing. So for example, I would write Janome M7 Continental, applique, stitch number 7, 2.5 by 2. That's what I would write down for myself, because in a perfect world, your memory is going to be great and you're going to remember your favorite stitch width and length, but you don't. For example, I didn't today. That's why I went and grabbed a scrap piece of fabric and tested again to see what my favorite is. So again, make a little note for yourself. Now what I'm going to do is load my thread. I think the first color we're doing is 1812. So I'm going to load the 30 weight in my needle, and I'm going to put, I dropped my bobbin on the floor a second ago, so it came unwound. I'm going to put my 50 weight bobbin that I just made in the bobbin, and then I'm going to change my machine to a 90-14 needle because it has a larger eye and it's going to accommodate more easily that 30 weight thread flowing through the eye of the needle. So never adjust your tension or anything like that. You don't ever have to touch that as long as you're using the proper needle. So now the next few you're going to have is down here of some stitching. So let's do it.
So I've got my applique stitch chosen. I've got my needle right here at the junction of this tree and the trunk, the tree leaves and the trunk. And I've got my speed set on slow. This always helps when you're beginning, especially. You can make sure your stitch is just how you like it. I'm trying to guide my needle so that it is right on the very edge, just the needle's width onto the background right next to the edge of this piece. And here we go down this side. Now it's not absolutely necessary to stitch all the way across the bottom of this because we're going to be catching this into the seam when we make our pillow. So there's one side done. This side we're going to go from the bottom up like this. So I'm going to set my needle right where I need it, right there, foot down. And here we go. I'm going to raise it just a little bit faster. I think you see what's happening here. I do have a piece of Sulky stabilizer, Tear Easy stabilizer underneath, which I feel is critical for making this easier. So now, because I'm going to stitch my tree in the same purple color, I am just not going to break my thread here. And I'm going to come around. Now for this, you need to go really slow when you're going around a curve. Maybe not quite this slow, but you can see it really well. Our goal is to try to keep the stitch that bites in perpendicular with the edge of the applique piece so that it makes a nice, smooth look. So I am, let me change one thing there. Going along like this. Now, if you notice, well, you can't tell, I guess, but I do so with my finger. Now, I've come to the joint or a pivot point on this, so I'm going to leave my needle down, come back around, and start again. And if you can see, that wasn't quite in the desired spot for me. But if I keep it going in a gentle curve, nobody's really going to notice. You have to not be hard on yourself because you need to remember this is going into a quilt. It's going to be quilted around the pieces most likely. Even if it's a pincushion, you're going to have some little background on it, and it's just not going to really show. You're going to stuff your pincushion, but if it was your quilt, you're going to have the batting, which is going to puff it up, and the pretty quilting beside it. So it's not really going to be noticeable. You're looking at a very close-up view, so don't be too hard on yourself. And as we said, this quilt is great for beginners. This pincushion is probably one of the hardest blocks to do, actually, because it's smaller. The blocks that you make for your quilt are going to be larger, so they're going to be a lot easier than this because they're just bigger. Bigger is easier. You know, driving around a big curve is easier than going around a tight corner. So you just keep going like this, all around the edge. Now, I chose to stitch this in purple because I like the fun contrast. To me, this is like so many of our quilts, it's whimsical, and I think that adds to the whimsy. If you would prefer to stitch it in a matching thread, go for it. You can use whatever you like. It's your quilt. Make it so it makes you happy. Now we're at another pivot point, so the needle's down. And if you have a sewing machine that has the needle down function, you want to make sure that you use that because it's beneficial, especially if you have one like this that will lift your foot for you too, then you don't have to reach back and raise your foot up. But having the needle stop down, that's how you want to pivot. Even if you don't have a machine that does needle down, when you stop, make sure that you leave your needle in so you can turn. Otherwise, your stitches will not be in the place necessarily that you think they're going to be when you start back up again. See? There we go. So we're going to pivot around here. This is going really slowly. I'll see if I can speed it up just a tiny bit so you guys don't get so bored with me. Now here we're coming to the edge of the house, the roof line. So we're going to have to stop right here. Just like that. And if you'll notice on this, we'll be doing the roof on its own, and then the edge of the house will be done this way. So and the tree is behind the house, so you don't stitch your purple on the tree right here. Leave that alone. Get your thread out, and then you can pick it right back up right here and proceed on down around and catch it. So I think by now you've got the gist of this. You can see how much cuter it looks when it's stitched versus when it's not. I think applique is such a fun thing. It looks super cute, even if, you can do your own preferred stitch. I like to do the buttonhole stitch. Some people like a loose zigzag. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not show? Was it showing what I?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you guys. I forget that I'm talking to a camera. Got to keep things in the view so you can see it. But where was I going? Oh, the stitches. You can use a straight stitch all the way around. The trick with that is sometimes to do 2 stitches around. It looks really cute. You can do a small zigzag. You can do a satin stitch, which is a really tight, close zigzag. Some people prefer that to a buttonhole. You can do whatever you like. I just like to do buttonhole stitches. I think they're fun. They, to me, add to the whimsy. So I hope that you enjoy making this little pincushion. And as always, happy stitching!